As we step into this new year, we have our resolutions and our goals. And today I want to talk about mastering your craft and understanding the inner workings at play. For me, mastering any skill or art form really has to do to how deep you choose to dive into its fundamentals, its mechanics, and its inner workings. It's also very important to understand that there's like a commitment to stay consistent while you're practicing to reach that goal. Now, without having the bigger picture, grasp on the mechanism at play, it's really easy to get setbacks in your workflow. So you don't really know what's the first step, what's the second step, what's the third step. For example, consider the process of learning a musical instrument. It's not really enough to go through the motions, just read the notes from the page. It's really helpful if you can understand what those notes mean on a theoretical level, on a practical technical level, dynamics. There's so many factors that really are happening while you're reading that music. And if you understand the mechanics behind what is communicated through the notes, there's a higher chance that you're going to learn from that and reach greatness faster. Now, these same principles, of course, hold truth to any field, right? From cooking, right? There's basics there. Sports, lots of discipline and consistency and basics and fundamentals there. Art, science, or any other endeavor. For me, true mastery requires a very specific dedication and understanding of the mechanics while going through them in a very consistent way for a very long period of time. Very long. It is through that consistency that you gain control and confidence and excel in the field that you want. In our case, guitar playing. Of course, as you go, there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be challenges, going to be stuff that you just don't intuitively understand. And that's exactly why you can seek help, from online courses to mentors, all the way to just like YouTube right now, right? There's so many ways to resolve the issues you have along the way. But the most important thing is that when you hit a plateau, look at it through critical thinking and say like, okay, how can I resolve this right now? What can I do to improve? And when you resolve that issue, that opens like a whole other paradigm where you can excel and go to the next level. So with that in mind, here are some tips for staying inspired and engaged as a guitarist and musician. So my first tip is always stay open to new musical ideas and approaches. I remember growing up as a rock guy, going to prog, then going to fusion, then from there into bebop, then back to fusion, back to prog. This whole thing, hanging out with cats who play blues, but then also hanging with people who are really into jazz. Then the modern jazz came into the picture, always being open, always exploring where your taste is taking you. Because your taste and your excitement is kind of an indicator of the style that you're about to develop. So don't be afraid to experiment with different styles, different ways of writing, playing around with different scales, chord progressions, arrangement, to see what works for you and what doesn't. Because sometimes the best ideas actually come from trying something that you've never done before. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is practicing regularly to keep your skills sharp and to constantly improve. As a musician, practice is an essential element to keeping your skills sharp. Talent is a jumping point, don't get me wrong, but if you don't practice regularly, your skills are just gonna suffer. If I don't practice for a week, I notice it. If I don't practice for 2 weeks, my students start noticing it. And if I don't practice for a month, the audience notices it. So one way to make sure you're practicing regularly is to set aside a specific time each day for practice. This can be a dedicated practice session, a series of shorter sessions throughout the day. The important thing is to make sure you're setting aside time specifically for practice, right? And make it effective. Have a clear plan for what you're going to work on. This can help you stay focused. For me personally, I usually just like to work on 1 or 2 things for a few months. That can be maybe a transcription, my compositions, and maybe another thing. But that's it. Because if I focus on only 2 things and I master them and I practice them a lot, I can draw inspiration from 2 sources that I'm building strength on, rather than building on confusion by attacking so many subjects. Overall, practice is a very essential skill, right? It's very important to have good practicing habits. By setting aside dedicated practice time and having a clear plan, you can make the most out of your practice sessions and continue to grow as an artist. Collaborating with other musicians is a really great way to learn from each other. and grow as an artist. Because when you have this accountability, this exchanging of ideas, this is where a lot of the magic happens. So it's good to stay in your room and practice, but go out there, experience stuff. Maybe you're working on a composition. Yeah, so set up a session and call the guys, play that tune. Maybe they can add some ideas, maybe they can take it to a new whole level. When writing music together, or even just expressing music together, you can bring different perspectives and influences into the table, which can result in a more diverse, interesting effect. Collaborating with musicians is something that really helped me shape my style, and also understand what I am and what I'm not, what I can bring to the table and what I'm not interested in bringing to the table, what I can leave room for others. We're always serving the music here, and by playing together, we learn a lot. Don't be afraid to experiment and try new approaches when you're writing together. Be the leader who can be very open. Oh, let's try that. That's actually a good idea. Oh, that's interesting, but also have your perspective on how you can shape things. Remember to have fun, enjoy the process of creating music with others, because this is what the collaboration is all about. And I'm gonna keep this one short because I'm not an expert on that, but I can tell you that replacing strings, making sure that my intonation on my guitar, the action, the setup is working, this is a big deal, because this also makes me want to pick up the guitar, and it also makes it easier for me to express what it is I'm hearing, what it is I want to play. So take care of your instrument. You know what's right for you. What can work for me might not work for you. And another thing is to take care of your setup. When you're practicing or when you're performing, have your setup ready to go. Have the easiest way to just plug and go. For example, for me, I had a big problem a few years ago of making YouTube videos easily. Every time I wanted to make a video, I had to set up the cameras, the lights, connect everything together, position it again, then pack it up and do, the next day again. So I made a decision a year ago that I'm gonna have a nice setup, a nice room dedicated where everything is already set up, just to hit the record button and go. So once again, remember, as you embark on this journey, there's gonna be setbacks, there's gonna be challenges, but what's gonna really define is your bigger picture of understanding the different mechanism of what it is you're trying to achieve, and going one by one, achieving those. When you enter a setback or a challenge, stay there for a while, because by breaking that block, that's gonna open a whole other door, a whole other field that is gonna give you so many ideas and connections, and that's exactly how you're gonna reach the next level this year.